Welcome to my channel, Tomatoes, Poppies, and Everything Gardening. I'm Heather, and I am in Central Virginia, Zone 7A. I'm a gardener, and I like tomatoes. So this is a very special episode for me, and it's also my my 100th video. I think that includes shorts, and I do have quite a few shorts, but that's a lot to accomplish in, I think, just like maybe 3 months. I have enjoyed making the videos. I've loved the comments and encouragement from everyone. Thank you so much. So today, I thought I would share a video that might be helpful to someone who is kind of late ordering their seeds for spring. I don't consider you late, but I have been seeing so many seed haul videos pop up on my feed lately that I feel like I'm behind the game. I have not even opened one seed catalog, but honestly, I do not need any seeds, and I definitely do not need tomato seeds. So today I'm just going to talk about what I started from seed in 2022 as tomato for tomatoes. I did grow a lot of other plants. Sorry, I've got to prop my phone up here in a very unbelievable way. Maybe I'll take a picture of it to show you guys. I do have a tripod, but I can't find it. So anyways, I grew a lot of plants, but I did grow quite a few tomatoes last year. I grew 17 different varieties. At one point, I had about 150 plus seedlings, and I think I ended up with close to that amount that were viable and ready for planting and or selling. I did do a tomato plant sale in the spring, just word of mouth, through my husband's work, family, friends, all got theirs for free. But between selling and giving away, I gave away about 150 plants. So that was really fun. That was my first time to do that, and it was a great feeling to be. I will tell you, some of my plants actually traveled all the way back to Kentucky. So we gave away to, at least 4 different people in Kentucky, and then some family here in Virginia got some, and then I gave away to friends, and then also on my neighborhood free board, I gave away some. Basically, I sowed enough just to make, to be able to buy the canner I wanted, which was the big Presto 23 quart. And then I gave everything else away at that point, because I was like, I'm done selling. I just wanted enough for this canner. So I think I made a lot of people happy with a lot of tomato plants, and I want to do that again. But I'm not sure how that's going to work out with us putting the house up sooner than later to sell, and for showing. Because I'll show you, I start my seeds for tomatoes and peppers and eggplants in this bay window. I have a seed starting contraption that I kind of put together myself and added the grow lights. So the seedlings get about, I don't know how much sun from this bay window, but it's nice bright light. And then I have the grow lights on probably 8 to 10, 12 hours a day when they're little. So anyways, that is another video. I probably should not have gotten off topic. The focus of this video is just to go over the ones I grew in 2022 and what I thought about them, if I would grow them again. I'm going to include lots of pictures from the summer, and I will also show the seed pack. I've lost about 3 though, and I think they're out in the garage somewhere. Probably just stuffed them in something one day when I was out there and then never brought them back. Although that doesn't really make sense. I don't know where they're at, but I am missing about 3 packs of tomatoes. So anyways, let's get started. Okay, I am actually going to start with number 17. And this was the last tomato plant seed that I started in 2022. And it is this gorgeous Tasmanian chocolate. I actually did not start these with all of my other seeds in the late winter of 2022. I did an experiment with this in July. I started 2 plants on the back deck in just a probably like a 10 to 12 inch container, wide container. No special treatment. I just put the seeds into the soil. I wanted to see what would happen because this is a small plant. Let's see if it tells me how big it gets. It says use at least a pot 15 inches wide. Okay, and 18 inches tall. It should get 2.5 to 3 feet tall. So that did happen. I actually had one that grew to full size, and it did produce in October. So I was able to grow this dwarf tomato plant between, let's say, mid-July and mid-October to where it did bear fruit that I could pick and eat. And I also, you'll see the big tomato plant behind me. This is the second plant. This one was grown more in part sun on my back deck. The other one that produced in October, I had moved forward on my property to where it was getting more full sun. But you can see, late October, I potted him up and brought him inside. And he did not have any fruit at that point. He may have had 1 or 2 blossoms, but I brought him in. He was probably only about, after I potted it up into a new pot with new soil, I would say it ended up being about 12 inches tall. So I brought him in, he started growing, and probably when he got to about 24 inches tall, I made another video, and I'll link it in the description, where I potted him into the current pot that he's in, which is a pretty big pot, and then he just took off. I mean, this plant has been growing so well indoors. I'm also going to insert some pictures here that I took this morning. I've got my second baby tomato growing so well, and I have probably, gosh, 20-30 blossoms on this plant. It is just mind-blowing to me how well this plant is doing. It only gets the light from the bay window and also grow light above it. You can see a little bit of it there in the image. Maybe 8 to 10 hours a day. I'm just so impressed. And look at this. This grew indoors in my kitchen, in my window, on that plant. I have a tomato. I've never had an indoor tomato like this, except when I did the Aero garden with the water. And those are just little teeny weeny tomatoes that didn't taste like tomatoes, and they didn't smell like tomatoes. This plant behind me, every morning I check it, and I go over there and I rub the stem, and then I smell my hand. I just love that smell. It makes me so happy. It is like pure sunshine, pure summer. Even if it's ugly out and dreary, I can just spend some time with this tomato and feel so happy. So I'm going to cut this. This will be my first taste of an indoor, kitchen-grown, homegrown tomato. So I'm so excited. And it's such a beautiful color. Not sure if you can pick up on that. It's got some orange tint to it, but it's also got some chocolate brown tint, and then of course the red. I did get slight cat facing on the bottom, and it's got some nice pleated little, not too bad though, shoulders. So I'm just going to slice off a tiny little bit and do a taste test. I will say the ones that I grew outdoors, the one that grew strictly outdoors and then I harvested the fruit mid-October, A couple of those did taste slightly mealy to me, but we had already started to get some cold weather, so I don't know if that affected the fruit. So I just cut off a tiny bit of one of the shoulders. It does have a good amount of seeds in there. So let's see. It smells like a tomato. Wow. It definitely feels and tastes like a summer tomato. It just kind of bursts in my mouth. It's really good. It still has just a slight hint of mealiness at some point of the bite, but not enough that I would ever say don't grow this tomato. I mean, I'm pretty much in love with this tomato, the one behind me, so I'm going to have a hard time saying anything negative about it. I think it's good. I really like this tomato. So this is a keeper. I'm going to keep this tomato in my rotation. And I may even just keep one growing in my kitchen forever now. Who knows? It's really good. Really good. I'm going to eat the rest of this for lunch. Maybe with some bacon and a piece of bread and some veggies. I think that'll be quite good. So definitely I'm going to recommend number 17 for me. Not number 17 on my list, but this was my 17th 2022 tomato. I'm going to give y'all an up-close look at this tomato since we're here. Now, I think these are marigold seeds that I just put in here after I was storing some seeds a couple weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that is what I have growing. Uh-oh, I see a fungus net there. It is time for me to do that second round of treatment. And then I've got a sucker that I rooted, some water, and then stuck in the soil here. And then when I was working on this plant a week ago, I saw another one and I cut it. You can see it's got roots. So I'm not sure where I'm going to put him. I wanted to show you a good example of a sucker. Saw it earlier on here. It's just an awesome. There we go. See this kind of a sharp angled V? And then you have something growing out right there. That middle growth, that is your sucker. And so you can apply this method to your indeterminate tomatoes if you wanted to start a new plant, a clone. You would just cut the sucker right here and then put it in some water until it grows roots, and then you could plant it. Or often what I'll do is I will just cut that sucker and just stick it in the ground, and usually it'll take off. It'll depend on your soil, the time of year, how dry your soil is, but that can work. If you want the surefire method though, put it in some water until it gets those white roots coming out, and then you can plant it. You can see I've got so many little buds, blossoms. I actually do have a baby over here. Look at him. He is so cute. I look at him every morning. It looks like he's going to have a similar shape to the other one that I just took a bite out of. But just an unbelievable amount of blossoms and buds on this indoor dwarf tomato plant. Now, let's see that right there. I'm just going to pick that off. So we'll, sometimes you do want to cut and prune just a little to keep the growth going where you want it to go. I usually do not trim my dwarf tomato plants at all, or semi-determinate, but yeah, there he is, pure sunshine. Okay, so let's start with the cherry tomatoes. All of my cherry tomatoes are indeterminate that I grew this year. The first one is Berry's Crazy Cherry. I did not think I would like this. I'm not a huge fan of light colored or yellow tomatoes. This one really took me by surprise. I loved it. It is a delicate, mild a little bit sweet tomato that kind of almost resembles a grape. It's got a little bit of a pointy end, and they fall so easily from the plant. They're a little delicate, but I really loved them. It really made me change my attitude towards these tomatoes. They're a little bit lighter in color. I just really was impressed. I would definitely keep this one in my rotation. Let me peek at my notes here. All I wrote for it was bright white yellow color, but it's definitely a keeper for me. So the next cherry tomato that I grew this year was this Tropical Sunset. This is also going to be a keeper for me. They're kind of ping pong size. They're a little bit big for a cherry tomato, but they kind of just pop in your mouth, and they're just incredibly sweet and tangy and just a perfect balance. And the color is gorgeous. It's like a marbling. There's a really beautiful marble effect with like, these were one of my first producers and also one of my last. They did not like the middle section of heat that came about in the summer, and they did stop producing during the hottest part of the summer. But overall, absolutely a keeper. So I cannot find my package of red pearl tomato seeds. It's another small cherry tomato, maybe more like a grape size. Perfect for like a salad. I'll put some pictures here for you. I got these from Johnny's. Just a very prolific tomato plant. It produced nonstop. Actually, I do have this I can show you. So they were so prolific, we could not keep up with eating them. So I ended up having to dehydrate many batches of these. So I've got this huge pickle jar full. I did actually have 2 other quart jars full, but I was in a hurry with both of those batches. I did not fully dehydrate them, and then 1 or 2 started to mold, and then the whole batch is lost. But it was a gorgeous tomato, very traditional, tarty kind of tomato flavor. That's also going to have to be a keeper for me. I cannot find my package of chocolate cherry tomatoes either, so just enjoy these pictures right here. This is my second year to grow chocolate cherry from seed. It is a gorgeous tomato, and it tastes wonderful. It's got that rich, smoky, sweetish kind of tomato flavor, but very low to produce both years. Not just at my house, but my friend grew those as well. She said the same thing. They really don't produce that well, but it is a pretty, little small cherry tomato. Definitely, if you have the space, I would suggest this one. I'm not going to grow it again for a while because I grew it 2 years in a row, but it's not one that I'll never grow again. Definitely, if I have the space, it would be a keeper for me. And then I grew this plant. I call it STUPICE. I could be pronouncing that wrong. It was very prolific. It was a potato leaf plant. It was a beautiful plant to look at. The fruits did really well. I would say maybe more of a mid-season to start producing, but once it starts, it doesn't stop. So this is all I have left again that I have in the freezer. This is about the size they get. Kind of, I guess, around a ping pong ball size. I love that sound. It's like a bag of marbles. But I'm keeping these in the freezer. And, if you're making a stew or a soup and you want a little bit of tomatoes in there, you can just throw a few of these frozen ones in. Maybe not a keeper for this upcoming year. It's not one I would never grow again. It's not one that stands out in my mind, but I have no issues with it. So I'm neutral. I guess I'm neutral with this tomato. Here is a determinate tomato, which means it will grow to a certain height and it will produce a certain amount and then it's done. And this plant did that for me very well. It was an absolutely gorgeous plant. The fruits look beautiful on the vine. And they tasted fine. I have no issues with eating them fresh. But if you're looking to grow a determinate plum tomato that's going to produce, for canning, I had an issue with yellow sauce. I just had a really hard time looking at just a pure yellow tomato sauce. So I don't know if I would ever grow this one again for that purpose. And it did produce really, really well. What I ended up doing with a lot, other than eating fresh, we tried to eat them quite a bit fresh. I made this, it's like peach pepper with yellow tomato salsa. So that was the only thing I could come up with to use a bunch of mine for, because I just couldn't eat a pure white, yellow sauce. I did add these to a bunch of batches of tomato soup to kind of, get rid of them. So I don't know. I don't know about this as far as being an annual keeper for me. I probably will just stick to a basic red for this purpose of growing for canning. Cannot find the seed packet for my MARTINO'S, but those I did grow the year before too. So that would be comparable to the cream sausage as far as a Roma or a plum tomato for canning. It's a determinate. You should get most of your harvest within 1-2 week range, and then you can can or preserve as you see fit. So just a basic, I'm not saying it's the best. I may try something else this year. So I'm kind of neutral. I have no harsh feelings towards this tomato and no extreme love either, but I have no issues with it. So this tomato, PERON, I had really high hopes for. It's supposed to be a semi-determinate, which means it will grow to a certain height, but that it may still continue. It should still continue. It was supposed to be more on the compact side, and that's not really true for me, but I've only grown it this 1 year, so I may give it another chance. My aunt back in Kentucky, she really wanted to try this variety, so I sent quite a few of these to her. I really should have maybe called her before this video to get her absolute opinion. It did produce well. Actually, I think it acted, that's what I have in my notes. I'm looking at my notes. It did act more like a determinate. I think once it got to that point of producing, then it really kind of just slugged off. And I remember I cut these out before the season was over. So I'm going to say this acted more like a determinate for me. One of the selling points of this is that it's used to be considered a sprayless. So it was insect resistant. You didn't have to spray it back in the day when people sprayed their tomato plants. And that it had thick and possibly tough skin, but it could be good for canning or slicing, like a real versatile tomato. I'm not going to grow this again anytime soon. Maybe someday when I have a lot of in-ground space, I'll try it again. But as of right now, he's going to go on the maybe later shelf for me. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the dwarf tomatoes I grew this year. Geranium Kiss, this is my second year growing it. It is a cute little plant. It has cute fruit with a little, a little point at the end. Kind of reminds you of a little Hershey Kiss. Very bright, traditional tomato flavor. Some of the fruits got a little bigger than the others, but perfect for a salad. Definitely a cute little plant. Only grows to about 2 to 3 feet tall. I will say this plant did much better for me in 2021 when I traditionally started it indoors versus winter sowing. This was one that I tried in a winter sowing milk jug method, and I only got 2 viable plants from that method, and they were not as healthy as the year before. So here's a keeper dwarf tomato plant for me, and it is the Summer Sunrise. It is absolutely gorgeous. That's what it looks like. It's yellow with just like some pink and orange that kind of sunrises out basically from the center, which is just so pretty. This may be part of the International Dwarf Tomato Project. I'd have to double check that, but if it's not, I recommend growing it anyways. It makes fruits that are about 6 to 12 inches, so a good size tomato for like a sandwich. And the color is just so pretty, and it had just kind of a mild but bright and happy flavor. Definitely this will be another keeper for me. Okay, I cannot find the tomato I want to talk about, but I did find the Martino Roma, so I just thought I'd show you that real quick. But the one I wanted to talk about, and I don't know, it's one of those tomato packets I lost. It is part of the Dwarf Tomato Project, and I'm going to try to pronounce the name. I have it here in my notes. WHEROKOWHAI? I'm not even going to try. I'll put the name right here. You can look it up yourself. It's a dwarf. It only grows 2 to 3 feet tall. It is red with yellow kind of marbling striping, and the fruits get to be about, I'd say, 6 to 12 ounces. It was not very prolific for me, maybe more so towards the end. I did grow one of these in my green stock, and it was happy there. I do remember picking fruit really late from that, so it may be one that didn't tolerate the heat too well. And you know, sometimes you can look at where these plants originated from, where the seeds kind of got their rooting and starting from, and if it's in an area that is traditionally colder, you know, that tomato may not do as well in the heat for you. So that's something to keep in mind. I may try this one again for like just the green stalk, but probably wouldn't grow a ton of these. Okay, so this is another seed packet that I have misplaced, and it is the Paul Robeson, and this one was one that I started with the winter sowing method, and it did not do well. It developed some kind of rust and or fungus infection. I was able to save just a couple of the plants, and where I ended up planting them, the deer demolished. I don't even know if I got one fruit from this particular variety, so I'm not going to have any input really. I'm just going to say that it seemed to maybe want to have a little bit of shade. So I will try this one again, probably actually this year, and I will let you know. So you can tell I've moved into my big slicers and indeterminates. This one is the black pineapple, and I'll put some pictures up here. It was extremely gorgeous, very late producer for me. It did seem to have some issues with a little bit of disease and so forth. I do not think this is probably a good tomato for my zone and location with the heat and humidity that we get in the summer. I will try it one more time just because it was so pretty. It did seem to want shade, some shade. It just seemed to struggle here, and I don't know if it's because this was one that I also did with the winter sowing method. And from my experience this year, my first time trying winter sowing for tomatoes, I was not happy with the results. So I think my tomatoes need to be traditionally, as I've been doing, started indoors to keep them healthy. But if you think you have the location and climate to handle this tomato, I think this would be definitely a gorgeous plant to have. I did get to eat a few. I don't remember them being out of this world, but I think they were tasty. They were actually just so gorgeous. I'm not sure if I was focused on the taste, but definitely give it a try. Let me know what you think. Okay, here is one that was started inside my traditional way. It was very healthy. I ended up, for some reason, selling and or getting rid of quite a few of these. So I ended up with just one for myself. And it grew fine. Um, it, it had a lot of pleating up at the shoulders, and I'm not a big fan of that. So I would say I remember the first one I ate off of this plant. I thought it was really kind of mealy for me. And it had a lot of seeds inside. And then with the shoulders, by the time you cut it and, get it ready for eating, even though it's a big slicer, um, it isn't just a keeper for me. Like, I would much rather have like a German Johnson over this one. I'm going to keep the seeds. I may try it again, in 3 or 4 years. I did send this one to my aunt as well. She wanted to try this one back in Kentucky. So maybe she had better luck. I need to check in with her about this particular plant. Maybe her soil and climate, she's in a zone 6. So maybe that makes a difference. Those are just my thoughts. Definitely give it a try if it sounds interesting to you. So I did find my seeds after all. I'm glad I didn't lose these. Okay, so the Brandywine Black, I do feel like this was one of my first big slicers to produce, and just absolutely gorgeous fruit. I had no problem eating them. I ate quite a few. They were really, really good. Definitely seemed to tolerate more shade, like it wanted a little more shade. And I have noticed, for me personally, when I grow darker tomatoes, I think they like a little more shade than like a white or a yellow or orange or red tomato. So I tend to offer them more shade. And actually, I had one of these in a pot on my back deck. He grew phenomenal in that location in a container. I'll put a picture right here. At one point, I had to use a ladder to try to get up there and pick the tomatoes. But he did overall well with pests. A keeper for me. I may try a different Brandywine next year, but keep this one, in my collection for the next 2-3 years or so. Definitely a keeper. This is going to be my number 1 tomato for 2022. I was completely shocked. I tried to give away so many of these. I didn't think I was going to like them because I'm not a fan of the lighter colored tomatoes. I'm really surprised I had any left by the time I sold and or gave away these. But I did, and I'm so fortunate I did, because this became a favorite. Dr. WYCHE'S or WYCHE'S, however you'd like to pronounce that. I say Dr. WYCHE'S. My daughter loved these. We ate so many like Capri salads with these, like with some mozzarella and the balsamic glaze, some basil. It was just phenomenal. We had this for lunch almost, until we got sick of it, every day for many weeks. So good. Some of these tomatoes got so big. This is a keeper. I'm so impressed with this tomato. I will grow it every year until we get sick of it. Some of them actually the fruits ended up this really bright orange, gorgeous color, but the flavor is just perfect. The texture, not too seedy, not mealy, just a phenomenal plant. I know I'm being a big salesman here, but I was really glad that I tried it and I grew it. Even though it's not something I thought I would like, I ended up loving it. So I recommend it to you. So that's going to be it, guys. I've got a big mess of seeds here, and I need to clean off the table. And well, that's it. This is my 100th video. So thank you for joining me. I hope you had success with your tomatoes in 2023. Once I make a decision on what I'm doing, plant-wise, seedling-wise, I will make a video on the tomatoes I plan to grow in 2023. So talk to you soon, guys. Bye.